popular enough that they sell it in the store. I don't like this. It's the best thing in the world.
I figured you'd think that. We're probably going to have to walk that.
It's morning.
Yeah, a lot of
Stay out of trouble.
I was watching you too. Then I didn't have to send somebody else down. Yeah. Oh, PK, sorry, buddy.
Sometime soon.
The minor waivers are in my kit. Do you want to probably go sign one now?
Yeah.
Okay, go talk. Do you know my sister?
What's her name? Ashley.
Oh, you're the next.
Sarah, what's that? What?
Okay. Be a while.
Put it down.
There we go. Put the dog knot on her, babe. Big ass. Red vines. I'm going to go up and sit down. I got 12 coming in. I'm gonna move up. I got 12 coming in. Go ahead and do it now. He's over with the Bernie. Bernie doesn't like it. She's standing there at the counter. He goes to give her a hug. She had a pair of scissors in her head? No way. So it's big one from here to here. He about flies.
Hear about that?
No.
Same thing.
And then his daughter-in-law was a hairstylist. She was happy about it because then she made it look good again. Right. Let's lock it up so they can put the phone. Randy, lock it up. Well, I like to keep the fuel tray on the side because it's really heavy. It was originally made for one of the early boats. It spans the top side. Oh. Oh. Had completed the last. At 12. 12.
You go back east for these outdoor shit next week. Yes, sir. Trepidation.
I can grab Jamie for an interview.
Audio or
No.
at some point you need to get those pictures.
You signed yesterday.
Good job. Good job, everyone.
Copy. Thanks. Do you want Jamie for an interview?
Sorry, yeah. I didn't see it until afterwards. I think that's what he did. Guess what? It's coming back towards you. I just get revenge. Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody.
It's a man with a big
Jess. Hey, crew. Hey, Claire.
big
Love you guys.
Interview?
Who's this guy right
What's that?
Interview? Here with Jamie Nielsen, driver of the U11 J&Ds. Jamie, we had a couple weeks since the last race. What did you and the team work on?
Well, I know there was a lot of work going on broken parts from Madison. That river is always tough and hard on equipment. I'm sure a lot of teams experience as well, but yeah, fixed a lot of broken stuff, and I know we did some work to try to make the boat better. And I know myself personally, I had some time to make a new seat for the boat, so should be a little more comfortable ride here in Tri-Cities.
Going into this test session, what are you looking to accomplish?
You know, to be honest, we're trying to just get some more time in the boat for myself. I mean, Gunnersville and Madison, I mean, we struggled a little bit and really didn't get a whole lot of hot laps and laps at speed. So I'm still trying to learn T4 a little bit, and I think this morning is going to be perfect for that. So we got great water, great race course, and you know, we're going to try to get a feel for the boat and then lay down some fast laps and get ready for qualifying.
What is your favorite thing to do outside of boat racing?
Favorite thing? Well, besides hanging out with my kids, I always love sneaking out to the golf course any chance I can get. So, big golfer when time permits.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie.
All right, thanks a lot.
You got in? Did you get a parking pass? Nice. Life's good. I left word not to let you in.
Nice.
Wish I had some water. And I could squirt it in.
Second.
No, I didn't. Not yet.
My sister's a 30-year-old. I'm sure she has that. Going to walk to the 3. Do you copy? Copy. At the fleet, am I live? Copy.
Oh my God, we're not going to go to church. She's going to take your call.
I'm going to stand by the video lady over here. First one is always tested.
Well, you just got elevated.
Yeah, because they want us to run through that middle floor first. Yeah, that's a hard one. You didn't even think of that, did you?
I'm sorry.
I wasn't meaning the H1 guys. I was meaning the turbine guys down there. So the rest of the fast and 63 will go.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think the H1 guys are that high.
I think you'll be just fine out there.
That's okay.
I'm live.
Good. Do you have audio on there? Oh, good. You can just blackmail everything. You have the beat button somewhere back there?
No, over 250. He didn't put big rings on it. Anyway, that's over 73 years ago.
Going back to other dock. Going back to other dock.
with Emily right here. Okay.
Oh. It's holding. Oh, you just turned it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. There's more. You don't get very many opportunities. Just turn it on. Thought I wasn't allowed on the dog.
You can get off now. Thank you.
Who's that? You talking to Cam?
I'm talking Brandon Casper to get an update to you.
Or what you talking to?
I texted Dan.
You just talking to?
What do you need me to do?
That's what he's going to do, and if Rick doesn't do it, Emily's going to interview. There's an issue on the race course, and we're going to either interview Rick or me as to what's going on out there. Just a minute.
Got to interview him.
No.
Yeah, right. Charging nothing. See? Yeah. Board of directors. You gotta get in our 2 cents for us though. They want us racing at 8 and they don't have a course ready.
And what's the latest?
You don't know. They got that big debris in the background. I know that they.
Have you signed?
I need to.
My sister has it. She's up there in a U11 shirt.
Your mom wants to go live.
Okay.
She's going to do it.
What's her name?
Ashley. Please go sign.
Is she the one with the cap right there?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if I know her.
Who?
Just go up there and say,
Water lap.
what?
Basically, it should attach. You're probably going to
Hi, you got me update? Alright.
Go back on the trail. It's going to be 45 to 60 minutes.
Copy.
Okay. I'll be just staying here and we'll kind of explain. Hold on, let me zoom out. Hold on, Kellen. Morning, everybody. Live from the Columbia River here at the 2021 HAPO Columbia Cup. Apologize for the delay here starting out our day. I've got Chief Referee Rick Sandstrom here. Rick, I've had a few difficulties this morning. Can you fill the fans in on what's going on?
Sure. Again, beautiful day, flat water. We've been jinxed a little bit at all three races. In Alabama, we ran into a big clump of grass that had to be relocated. Of course, we get to Madison and the river's running high and lots of debris in it, and we get here, it's beautiful, it's flat, and we have grass. So we've got to get the grass out of the race course. Rescue team and the site is working diligently to get it going. Hopefully we'll be on the water here shortly, but we can't, the boats can't run through the grass. It's a big clump, so it's something we have to get out of the way.
So this test session is scheduled to go until 10. Do you anticipate, obviously, more scheduled changes later on in the day?
Yeah, we're required to have 2 hours of testing, and we're working with the race chairman, Aaron Stevens, to see if we can't make that happen. We probably will. We've got a little bit of wiggle room, especially on Friday, and so we'll get the guys' times in sooner or later.
Rick Sandstrom, I appreciate it. Everybody on the stream, stay tuned to our social media channels as well as the YouTube chat. We're going to do our best to keep you up to date on all the schedule changes coming your way from the 2021 HAPO Columbia Cup. So thanks for your patience. We will have live action soon. So just stay tuned and keep an eye on those social media channels. Appreciate it.
Good. Yeah.
Midway. It's so good to be back along the Columbia River shore. Let's head down to the pits. And Brad Luce, are we ready to send some boats out on the water for the first time in 2021 on the Columbia Cup, the HAPO Columbia Cup?
Michael McDonald, we most certainly are. And as you said, it's been a couple of years. Seems like we took a year off. Yeah, we did. But you know what? Here we are. And it is just a glorious sight here. I'm just about to the top of the pit tower. I'm looking down toward the pit area, and we've got three boats in the water, 2 hanging over the water. So we, you and I, Michael, all our fans, the crews, everybody is anxious to get these boats out and run. So are the drivers. Talked to many of them this morning. They can't wait to get out here and eventually go racing and mix it up with each other. It's been a long time coming, but boy, have we got a glorious day to kick off Columbia Cup 2021.
And normally you talk about the heat during Columbia Cup weekend, and no different this time around for the HAPO Columbia Cup. As we go through the weekend, we'll get steadily increasing temperatures, and by Sunday, looks like the weather will be up around 100 degrees. Weather updates thanks to our friends at Anderson and Sense Dental in South Kennewick. Now, we have a little bit of a hold on the course, Brad, and I know you've been following this in the pits. We've had some teams that have been ready to go out. The river officially opened at 8 a.m. However, that being said, there was a giant wad of milfoil on the Griggs backstretch, and they're trying to get that cut up a little bit so they can disperse it and get it over towards the shoreline or have it float on downstream, and they're having trouble with that right now.
Yeah, and that would cause all kinds of problems, as you might imagine, if a hydroplane were to get involved in that with the propellers and so forth. So they've got to get that part cleaned up. You and I were talking a little bit ago. It's very similar to a problem we had down in Guntersville, Alabama. Now, it didn't happen on race weekend, but working up to race weekend, we had a similar problem down there. Something to the tune of 17 dump truck loads of milfoil had to get pulled out of an area right in front of the pit area. So it's kind of something that has already occurred to us so far on the 2021 circuit. I do see one other issue going on here. The apex buoy of the lower corner here has drifted away, and a patrol boat has got a line on it now, and they are working their way upstream to a position where they can put an apex buoy in place. So a couple things holding us up a bit, but to your point, the teams are ready to go. The boats are in the water, crews are down, and everybody's chomping at the bit.
Special thanks to our broadcast partners the whole weekend long. Farmers Exchange, serving the Tri-Cities for 98 years in downtown Kennewick. Locally owned and locally operated. Farmers Exchange, your power equipment headquarters for Husqvarna, Toro, and more. As we talk about the lineup for this year's unlimited hydroplanes, the H1 series, there have been a lot of changes. One thing does remain the same, though, and that is Jimmy Shane will be back in the blue and white home street, the U1.
Yes, he will. And for our fans who followed our first 2 races on the circuit this year in Guntersville, Alabama, that I alluded to, and in Madison, Indiana, when we ran the APBA Gold Cup, the home street boat was well represented at both those races, but it was not this particular hull. It was the 2007 hull, or said an easier way, the older boat, if you will, that was hopefully going to run this year as the Goodman Real Estate, painted black and gold. Well, they decided to run that boat at the first 2 races. It ran as the Goodman Real Estate Presents Miss Home Street. Jeff Bernard handled the driving duties in Guntersville, except for 1 test session and 1 heat when Jimmy Shane was aboard. When they went to Madison, they ran that same boat again, but Jimmy Shane handled the driving duties out throughout the entire weekend and claimed his 5th Gold Cup in the process. But as we look down toward the dock now, the black and gold is gone. It has been replaced by, and not just the paint, it is the new boat. The 2018 hull is hanging over the water. Jimmy Shane is here, and he will be driving the U1 Miss Home Street this weekend.
And talk a little bit about why both drivers were able to get in the cockpit, yet only one would really compete.
Yeah, they were making sure they had driver qualifications taken care of. And that rule has changed a little bit. There's some new verbiage in it, but the bottom line is they wanted to make sure that although Jeff Bernard was going to drive the boat in Guntersville, they wanted to get Jimmy Shane some seat time such that he was then fully qualified for any driving later on in the year and certainly the following weekend in Madison, Indiana.
I heard they were having
It must have come from upriver.
You know, it's kind of interesting when we take a look at the course now as they continue to work out across the Griggs backstretch. They definitely are clearing out some of that milfoil. The question is, I guess, how long that might take.
It might take all day. I think it might take all day.
So, Brad, down in the pits, tell us about the boats that might be in the water and whom we may see out on the course first.
Well, we've got the U40, the Beacon Plumbing, and there's another of our driver changes and big stories on the air. The U40, the Beacon Plumbing with Dave Vilwalk. That boat has been in the water for quite some time. Behind them is the 11, the J&Ds. That'll be Jamie Nielsen, the boat owned by Scott and Shannon Rainey. Hanging over the water, and it has been for the last at least 45 minutes, starting to push an hour, has been the U1 Miss Home Street that I just alluded to, the powder blue and white. They are hanging over the water, and right here beneath the pit tower, the U3, the Griggs Ace Hardware, the piston boat that everybody's anxious to see and hear, that boat is hanging over the water right now as well.
Yeah, we had some of the, in fact, Mug Hansen with the Home Street team was up here earlier and then went back to the pits. He was going to be here for the, timing and watching how the boat reacted out on the water, but knowing that we were going to be in a delay, he headed back to the Lamson pits.
Yeah, and we've seen that a couple of times here because the corral for the H1 Unlimiteds is one level above us here on the pit tower. So I just walked up to that level, and the only person standing up here right now is Scott Rainey as far as a radio man. So you know the 11's in the water. I just made it all the way up to my to the top
perch.
of the my perch here at the top of the tower, and I'm happy to say that our illustrious Water Follies personnel have managed to at least add 5 more stairs on the way up. At least it seems that way.
Well, the river is open technically until 10:30 for the H1 Unlimiteds and their testing, and then we'll have some inboard testing coming up later in the day. We actually have some racing coming up later this afternoon as we get ready for some of the 350s out on the water. And we've got a good fleet of 350s, the GPs here, the GP World Group, and just a whole lot of racing, plus the air show. And I know a lot of people are talking about the return of the F-35, who we had a chance to see during the September air show in 2020, which was kind of a fill-in, a placeholder for us. We were able to have a drive-in air show here along the Columbia River, and it was quite a spectacle.
It was. I actually got to see some of that spectacle. I was here. In fact, I was in the middle of my move that weekend. As you know, I'm now a newly crowned resident here of the Tri-Cities. So I call this place home. This was a special moment this morning, Michael. I got to get out of my own bed, have a cup of coffee in my own kitchen, and jump in the car and drive down to the river. It was kind of fun. I like this.
Makes it easier, doesn't it?
Oh, and my cohort that was with me this morning as we walked pulled the car out of the garage, and it was so pleasant. She goes, "You do realize it's 59 degrees. Man, was that beautiful this morning."
Very comfortable. Special thanks to our friends at Bunch Finnegan and Bosch Appliances. They've been working together for a long, long time. Bosch Appliances will help you create an unforgettable experience in your kitchen. Bosch Appliances offer perfection in every detail at Bunch Finnegan at 9 East Columbia Drive in Kennewick. Turn 2, thanks to our friends at Tire Factory, Michelin, BF Goodrich, Bridgestone, Uniroyal, and more. And top-notch service, too. That's at Tire Factory in Richland, Pasco, and now Moses Lake. Also, your Shell Sun Market stores are coming to your neighborhood soon. West Richland, Benton City, and 27th and Olympia in Kennewick. Already open on West Clearwater and Interstate 82 and at Horn Rapids in Richland. Sun Market stores, thanks to Sun Pacific Energy. American Radiator can clean up your DPFs and DOCs, saving you money and keeping you on the road with American Radiator. Free pickup and delivery available throughout much of our great Northwest at AmericanRadiator.com. Our pit reporters, thanks to American Radiator. Here at the start-finish line, JMC Motorsports, your local Honda dealer, wants to remind you to be safe this boat race weekend. Wear your helmets, sunscreen, drink plenty of water, and if you're enjoying your libations, make sure you have a designated driver. JMC Motorsports, just across the Cable Bridge in Pasco. Also, Legends Casino Hotel in Toppenish. Come play and stay. You'll enjoy incredible amenities and great views of Mount Adams. Every day is a payday. Look up daily specials and promotions at legendscasino.com. Coverage of our Grand Prix boats thanks to Local 598 Plumbers and Steam Fitters and the signatory contractors, and IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 112, community-minded and community-involved. And our friends at ESCO Electric of the Tri-Cities, your local electrical specialist serving the region since 1972. Log on to letsgowithesco.com. We'll take a timeout. More of our coverage coming up. HAPO Columbia Cup from the Brutzman's official barge. News Radio 610 KONA, 610KONA.com.
Getting you on the road. Michelin summer savings are red hot.
for the ride. It is Water Follies 2021. Down in the Neil F. Lamson pits, our pit reporter is Brad Luce, thanks to American Radiator. And Brad, any activity with the boats out there? They're still working across the Griggs backstretch over by the Pasco shoreline on the milfoil issue.
Yeah, and they're still working on the apex buoy down here in the corner. They keep approaching it, and now it looks like there is a sled approaching the marker to affix a buoy to it, but I don't see where they have a buoy. So anyway, they're still working on that. In the meantime, I climbed off the tower, and I'm walking my way down the pit area. I think you just heard the sound of vintage hydroplanes. Which one have we got? That would be the 1958 Miss Bardall. Now, there's a good sound, Michael. I know you could hear it in the background. A Rolls-Royce Merlin. As we've got 4 H-1 vintage hydroplanes here from the 50s, 60s, and actually the 70s, because we have the 1973 Pan Pack here. So lots of activity to come when we finally get the course ready to go. We've got 3 classes of boats racing. We've got the vintage hydroplanes to come out and run, and as you said, we got a pretty darn good air show coming.
Well, that should, and the schedule always a little bit flexible, but we're looking for the HAPO Over the River Air Show to begin at 11, and that'll go until about 12:15. And if you were in Tri-Cities yesterday, you may have had a chance to hear or even feel the F-35 as it kind of flew by and went out over to Bergstrom Aircraft out at the Pasco Tri-Cities Airport. Quite an amazing sight.
Yeah, and I mentioned that I was moving that weekend, so I saw a little bit of this from afar, but I have not seen this bad boy, and I have certainly heard a lot about it. I'm anxious to see that particular vehicle.
Should be a lot of fun, and special thanks joining us on the broadcast and along the shoreline, Trenton Brown, Lieutenant Junior Grade with the U.S. Coast Guard, and you're a big part of this event with the Coast Guard. How do you try to keep everybody safe along the river?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your show real fast. On the river, we're here to make sure that no boaters get into the safety zone or into the race zone. It can get very dangerous. Obviously, with these boats going around so quickly, if one of these boaters were to cross that safety barrier. You'll see boats with blue lights on both the upper and lower part of the river, and they're making sure those boats aren't coming in. And if you are out on the river, just make sure you see those guys, stay at anchor or stay motoring back behind them. And if they pull to stop you, make sure you listen.
Is it difficult to stay anchored securely in the Columbia River? I mean, a lot of people kind of forget that there's quite a flow to this river. There's a nice current out there.
You know, it absolutely is, especially on the upper side with the river kind of pulling you down. It's really easy to lose situational awareness of where you're at and accidentally float in. That's why it's important to stay cognizant of what's going on and where you're at and making sure you're not drifting somewhere dangerous.
The other part of the equation is safety for the swimmers that like to jump in when the afternoon warms up. You want to get in the river.
Yeah, absolutely. And on downriver side, that's great. You don't have quite as great a view, but you're a lot easier to drift around. Upper side, you just got to make sure you know where you're at. You're not drifting somewhere on an accident.
And also the fans along the shoreline that hop in and need to be out whenever boats or even the air show is underway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are some times during the show where you can get in the water, but if there's any boats racing or planes flying over, you need to get out of the water.
How many Coast Guard personnel does it take to help keep Water Follies safe?
Right now, we've got about 25 Coast Guard personnel out here. We've got a small boat, upper and lower side, as well as some auxiliary facilities we're gracious to have. And we're also going to have an 87-foot patrol boat joining us, the Coast Guard cutter Wahoo, this afternoon. They're going to be here the rest of the weekend. So
excellent.
It'll be something interesting to see.
Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate the information, Trenton.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Trenton Brown, Lieutenant Junior Grade with the U.S. Coast Guard. Thanks to our friends that make it all possible. Our broadcast 2021 brought to you in part by Local 598, Plumbers and Steam Fitters, Signatory Contractors, and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 112. Along with All City Transmission. And serving the Northwest and Tri-Cities for over 80 years, Griggs Hardware. And the Ace stores in the Tri-Cities with coolers, camping and fishing gear, swimsuits, floaties, and inflatables, everything for summer fun. 4 locations to serve you at Griggs. Let's head back down to the Neil F. Lamson pits, our American Radiator pit reporter Brad Luce. And I know the vintage boats are near and dear to your heart. out of the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum, and they do a fantastic job on restoration, and they still are working on the Notre Dame. And I know a lot of people were hoping that that boat was going to make an appearance here, but it won't be ready.
Yeah, it's so close. I was hoping to see that boat because I'm talking to people that are involved in a restoration and also involved with another restoration that's going on there, and they're giving me progress updates on the boat all the time, and they just flat ran out of time. And I think, honestly, the boat's ready. I think that was maybe a motor issue they were holding on, but they were really on a tight line to get it here. So we don't get the Notre Dame here, but as I mentioned, we've got 4 boats. We have the Blue Chip is here, the 1958 Miss Bardall, the 57 Wahoo, and the 73 Pan Pac. So the vintage class will be well represented.
And they will be on the schedule coming up later today at about, well, looks like we have 2 heats scheduled for the vintage. We have actually a vintage dash scheduled for 4:15 this afternoon. That'll be something. That
will be something. If you like the noise, and everybody does, and you've got that nostalgic bone in your body, that you'll want to be a part of that. When the Grand Prix run, it is loud, but it's automotive loud, and it'll shake the ground. But if you like that vintage airplane sound, you're going to love it when our 4 vintage boats get out there. It'll be loud, it'll be good, and boy, it's going to take me back to my childhood, Mike, because that's how I grew up in this sport.
We talked a little bit about the U1 Miss Home Street with Jimmy Shane. Next on our roster would be the U3 Go 3 Racing, and this is one of those boats that brings people to the shoreline, driver Jimmy King.
Yeah, I talked to Jimmy this morning. He's really anxious to be here, and he's excited. And, you know, this boat, we talk about the test session. We talk about the fact the Home Street hasn't run for 2 years. They were not at the test session. So it's been 2 full years since the Home Street's been run. I guess not quite, because they did run in September in San Diego in 2019. But that Griggs Ace Hardware, when they pulled out of town here after throwing a prop in their 3rd preliminary heat up at your end of the race course, Michael, in the 2019 Columbia Cup, this boat hasn't been wet since. So, and they're in the water, and it'll be interesting to see how they come out and run. I talked to Ed Cooper, the owner, a couple of days ago. He's excited. He's very confident. He's got 4 Allisons in the back of the truck. They've moved them out. There's one in the boat. It's hanging over the water, and everybody's just waiting right now.
Yeah, it was back in 2019. That boat was actually performing extremely well.
Oh, boy, he was fast. I think he had... it was either the 3rd heat or the 4th heat that he threw the propeller. And it was like the top end of the race course from coming down to pick up 400 points in a heat win. And prior to that, he had 2 strong second-place finishes. So, yeah, the boat was running really well.
Also, a boat that has performed well, and a driver that we enjoy watching in the U8 Miss Tri-Cities. J. Michael Kelly.
J. Michael, and I had a good opportunity to talk to Mike yesterday afternoon as we did our each race walk through the pit area. Had a chance to talk to Mike. He got banged up pretty good in Madison, Indiana. If you've seen any of the footage of that, it was in his 3rd preliminary heat, and he was way out front, and he was at that lower corner in Madison, and there is a hole, and it's been there for years at the exit pin of that lower corner, and he got in it. The boat went sideways and landed on the side, and it tore the boat up pretty good, but it also tore up Mike pretty good. And my first question of him yesterday was, how are you feeling? And I thought his answer was great. He says, honestly, he says, I'm pretty sore. He said, but it didn't slow me down a whole lot. He goes, 2 weeks ago, I was back east running at the Inboard Nationals, and then last week I was at this lake running in this, and I'm going, so the ribs aren't holding you back. And he goes, nah, my wife just told me to suck it up and go. So he's ready.
Well, the boat, and we need to touch on this a little bit too, it was built in 2014, and it was the Elstrom boat.
It was, and it last got wet until before this year. It was 2017, I believe, at the Seattle Seafair, and J.W. Myers was behind the wheel of it, and it was called the Oh Boy Oberto, and that was the last time it ran. And the boat, from the time it was built until it made that last run at Seafair in 2017, the boat had never won a race. Now, you will remember, Michael, boy, did they come close.
Yeah.
I believe it was 2015 at the Gold Cup here when we thought they won. In fact, I remember doing an interview with Jean Thioret on the dock. And as soon as I got done with the interview, you went, Brad, hold everything. And so they did not win that race, and that hull had never won a race until a month ago down in Guntersville when J. Michael Kelly turned the trick with a convincing win at the Southern Cup.
Also, as part of Strong Racing, Darrell Strong has made a strong move into the sport of H1 Unlimiteds with 2 boat race teams, and very competitive. You know, you've got Corey Peabody, who came out at Guntersville as the top qualifier right out of the box in the U9.
Yeah, and you know, that was really interesting because after the 2019 season at the awards banquet, J. Michael Kelly got an award for something, and he was up there talking, and he leaned over the podium and he said to Jimmy Shane, there was something said about the fact that Jimmy Shane and the Miss Home Street was the top qualifier at all 5 events in 2019. And Mike looked over the podium at him and he says, you know, Jimmy, I'd like to do that one of these times. And I say all that as a background to Corey Peabody, who is the top qualifier in Guntersville, and I have Jeff Bernard up on the podium with me there, and we're talking, and he goes, yeah, what about Corey being top qualifier? He goes, I've never done that. And he goes, neither has Mike. So there's a bunch of guys here in very good boats who've never been top qualifier, and no, that's not what they give the big trophy out for, but they'd like to be able to say they're the quickest. And Corey, first time, first race for the Strong Racing, Darrell and Vanessa, he's the top qualifier. J. Michael Kelly in the other boat is number 2. They go out in their first heat of competition. In Heat 1A, the 2 boats finished 1-2, and lo and behold, in the final heat, they finished 1-2. That was a great weekend for Darrell and Vanessa Strong and the new team.
Reminder, be listening after our coverage concludes this afternoon from the Columbia River after our Dash for Cash from Payne West Insurance. The wrap-up show, the Rooster Tail wrap-up, thanks to Jason Hogue and American Family Insurance. American Family Insurance achieved the highest customer satisfaction score among mid-size insurers in the 2021 J.D. Power Insurance Shopping Satisfaction Study. Why settle for number 2? Contact Jason Hogue, my good friend, with AmFam today at jasonhogue.com. Also, after the races, head to Bob's Burgers and Brew, 2 locations in Richland and Kennebec, serving only the best burgers, appetizers, beverages, and more. It's always fun and good food. Go to bobsburgersandbrew.com and check out the menu and so much more. Brad, the other thing that is kind of similar with Strong Racing, both drivers, J. Michael Kelly, Corey Peabody, 42 years old, and a boatload of experience.
Yeah, you mentioned they're 42 years old, the both of them, and because of that and the fact they grew up very close to each other, they are grade school classmates. They've been all through school together, so this is a couple of kids, and I call them kids even at 42. And there's a reason for that, and you probably don't need to go down that road. But there's a real friendship there and a bond, and they have raced with each other. They've raced against each other in just about every class of race boat. If there is a boat that's got a motor on it, J. Michael Kelly's driven it, and pretty much the same can be said for Corey. And then when his whole Strong Racing team comes together, all of a sudden, here are the 2 of them as the 2 drivers for these 2 absolutely glorious hydroplanes that I'm standing right behind right now. And here they are, teammates again, just like back in the old days when they were classmates.
Yeah, what's kind of cool is the U8 Miss Tri-Cities has the Tri, and we all know that with Mike Denslow and some of the efforts they've done around the Tri-Cities. And then you've got Pinnacle as the Pinnacle Peak Consulting as the sponsor of the U9 for Strong Racing.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Denslow, he's standing just up the ramp from me here, kind of making a face at me, and so he's right here.
He's good at that.
He nods his head like, he'll say hello to us. But yes, we all know about the Tri and the Miss Tri-Cities and Pinnacle Peak Consulting. A little change on the U8. The boats are painted not identical.
Did they change the back wing?
They did.
Yeah.
The fairings, the verticals, if you will, the fairings on the back of the U8 are now orange, and I believe that is Sebring orange. We were having that discussion. I believe the colors of the boat are silver and Sebring orange. If that means anything to anybody, doesn't to me. I'm colorblind.
So the 8 will have a little bit different, distinctive color on the rear wing.
Yeah, and the cowling on the U9, the Pinnacle Peak Consulting, was always silver, and it was white on the Miss Tri-Cities.
Right.
In Guntersville, they had a problem and tore up the entire cowling on the Pinnacle Peak, the U9, and the spare cowling they had was an old Jones cowling that was still white. So that just made matters worse because now the easy way to tell them apart was now gone. They were both running with white cowlings, but it all has been repainted and recolored. So when the boats come on the water, the silver boat with the black wing and the black fairings, that is the 9. The silver boat with the white cowling and the orange fairings, that is the 8, the Miss Tri-Cities and JMK. And speaking of JMK, he is our defending champion driver in this particular race, which was a funny discussion last night. We were doing our pit walkthrough, and this came up at the test session. Mike goes, "I think I'm the champion here." And I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, but who's under the tree?
Andrew Tate. And so JMK at the test session had said to me, he goes, "How come it's the team and not the driver?" And I said, "I don't know. You better take that up with somebody else." So when we were doing the video walkthrough, the last comment I got from Andrew Tate was, "By the way, when you go down and see Mike, tell him thanks for the shade. We're enjoying it down here."
And for those that don't know, the last tree in the pits as you head east along the Columbia River is the Bernie Little Memorial Tree, and whoever would win the race would get that the next year when you return to the HAPO Columbia Cup.
Yep, because Bernie used to always park his bus and his 2 boats underneath that great big tree, and then, you know, as the story goes, and it's a true one, the tree was dying, and they were going to have to cut the tree down because nobody had enough money to come forward and save the tree. They could save it, but it was going to cost a pocket full of money. Bernie stepped up once he heard about it and said, "I'll pay for it because I like that tree and that shade." Thus, it is now the Bernie tree. And here's a good note, Mike. There's 2 boats underneath that tree right now, the U11 J&Ds and the U12, the Graham Trucking, both former Miss Budweisers.
And we will talk about those boats coming up in just a moment. Special thanks to our official apparel provider, Atomic Screen Print and Embroidery, official Waterfollies H1 Unlimited and vintage shirts, hats, and more, both sides of the river. Special thanks to our friends at Atomic Screen Print and Embroidery. They'll have 2 locations on the Kennewick shoreline, one near the pits, one here near the golf course and driving range, and then across on the Pasco side as well. Also, thanks to Zorich Automotive, their certified technicians use state-of-the-art equipment and technology to keep your European and exotic cars running strong. Right off Columbia Park Trail at the Richland Y, or visit ZorichAutomotive.com. Also, thanks to Jiffy Car Wash, monthly passes available with unlimited washes for a full month, providing a higher level of care for nearly 50 years. They even towel dry on the Quick Wash. They're up on Kennewick Avenue, and keep listening. We'll be giving away Jiffy Car Washes here at Columbia Park. Also, Clover Island Inn, your in-town destination resort, 4th floor Riverview. They have great suites, too. Riverside patio with pool and hot tub, fantastic food upstairs in the Crow's Nest. Check out cloverislandinn.com. Knights Fine Metal Art, celebrating the Columbia Cup with 20% off fine metal art today and tomorrow only. Visit Knight's Showroom Gallery for 20% off their in-stock art on Clearwater near Winco in Kennewick. Also, True Value Washington Hardware, downtown Kennewick, welcoming back race fans for the Hydros as they return to the Columbia River. For decades, Washington Hardware has helped Tri-Cityans build their lives. New hours Monday through Friday, 8:30 until 1 at True Value Washington Hardware. SS Equipment, New Holland Construction Equipment at SS Equipment in Pasco, Othello, Quincy, Hermiston, and LeGrand. SS Equipment and New Holland with skid steer loaders, compact track loaders, loader backhoes, compact excavators, and more. It's SS Equipment. Also, thanks to West Richland Golf Course, Restaurant and Lounge, value price golf, discount gear in the pro shop, delicious food, and well-built beverages in the lounge. Plus, your next event should be held at West Richland Golf Course, Restaurant and Lounge. And Farmers Exchange, 215 West Canal Drive in historic downtown Kennewick. Online, it's mowerhome.com. Year-round complete commercial and residential power equipment sales and service for Toro, Echo, Husqvarna, and so much more. It's Farmers Exchange. Take a time out. More of our coverage coming up from the HAPO Columbia Cup next on News Radio 610 KON. finish line as we continue our coverage, day one of the HAPO Columbia Cup and Over the River Air Show. Brad Luce is down in the pits, and we've had some activity on the Griggs backstretch. Special thanks to Griggs Ace Hardware, 4 locations to serve you in the Tri-Cities, sponsoring our backstretch all weekend long. And the problem has been the milfoil, and I thought some of the boats were dispersing where they were trying to cut up what has been described as a blob of milfoil. That being said, Brad, it looks like they're kind of reconverging and searching in the area to see where it's going.
A blob.
Yeah.
That's the technical term.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
And it was described as rather large. Somebody had suggested manatees might help.
Yeah, I think whatever is going on, I believe things are starting to happen, because we were standing with a crew member of the U3, the Turbinator, Griggs Ace Hardware, and all of a sudden, just as you were coming back on, he goes, uh-oh, gotta go.
Oh,
and
that's
he
a good
took off
sign.
Running. They just dropped the home street that's been hanging over the water. They just dropped it in, and I think things are starting to move here a little bit. Hopefully we'll get some boats on the water here shortly.
You know, the one major difference, and hats off to everybody with waterfall, is City of Kennewick. And we talked to the Coast Guard. We have sheriff's departments from both sides of the river, Franklin and Benton County, police departments, Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland too, to make this event happen this year. So many people, it was off, and then it was back on. And the one thing that you notice that is completely different this year, that will never happen again, Brad, is there's real estate open along the river where private areas normally are, and there's only a handful of private areas at this event for 2021. So in the coming years, you won't have the opportunity to claim some of the real estate that is open and available this year.
Yeah, some of the prime real estate, and you're exactly right. Eventually, things will, we assume and hope, will get back to normal, and then you will have those private viewing areas and so forth. But because of the timing, they just flat ran out of time and couldn't sell those and put those packages together. So there is a lot of prime real estate open on both sides of the river. And I walked up the river this morning and talked to a number of fans, and boy, everybody is just so darned excited. But the usual stuff is here. The pop-ups, the large pieces of green AstroTurf are down. And, oh, yeah, so far, the most popular thing I'm seeing up and down the beach is the misters, the private misters. And everybody's got these things, and they're around their pop-up, all 4 sides of it. And to sit in there, you just have this constant cool mist on you. Great stuff, a lot of them. A lot of handheld misters and coolers as well.
You know, the one thing about the weather forecast, really comfortable today, low 90s expected. We should be in the low to mid 90s tomorrow and closer to 100 by Sunday, but the wind for the forecast looks very light. Just a little bit of a breeze, and that's perfect for racing. Weather updates thanks to our friends at Anderson and Zentz Dental. That's KennewickSmiles.com in South Kennewick. Now, we left off, the last boat that where we're headed next was the 11, which is under the Bernie Little tree, and it caught my eye when I was coming over the Blue Bridge on Thursday. It was like, well, why would they be under the tree? That's J&D's Hydraulics.
And I posed that question to boat owner Scott Rainey when I saw him yesterday. I said, wow, underneath the tree here and getting some shade. And he goes, yeah, we pulled into the pit area. He said, we got here early, but it has nothing to do with your arrival time. The pit boss has it all drawn out, who goes where, and they just waved them down to the Bernie tree shade area and told them that because of everything that family does for the sport, and I can tell you, the Rainey family is so heavily invested in this sport. And I'm not talking about just the boat, but on the administrative side of things, the family is involved. If you get your credential to come to this event or any H1 event, you run smack dab into one of the family members. Emily is just outstanding in the credential department. So because of everything they do and have done for this sport, the waterfall, he said, tell you what, why don't you guys go down and park under the tree? When I mentioned it to Scott, he said the mission this weekend is to earn that tree. And I like that boat. Boy, if there is a dark horse this weekend, that is mine. And it's anything but dark. As you said, you come across the bridge, you can't miss that chartreuse. But I got a story for you. what's missing on the Chartreuse? There's no more Carnival Orange.
Interesting.
We always talk about the Carnival Orange, and there is Carnival Orange on it. I believe the J&Ds, where it's written on the blue, is in orange, and there is kind of a lightning bolt.
Yeah, up on the sponson?
Yeah. There is a lightning bolt on it, and it is Carnival Orange. But this has been a discussion I have been having with boat owner Shannon Rainey for some time, and she said, I'll find out the shade, because we have to say Chartreuse and something. And so I went to her in Guntersville, and I asked her, I said, so what's a shade of blue? She goes, I haven't got a clue. And there was a young man standing there. Turns out he's a 10-year-old from Bakersfield, California. And she looked at him and goes, what's your name? He said, it's Colton Pierce. She goes, what color's that? And he goes, it's blue. She goes, no, I want to know what shade of blue. And he goes, it's royal blue. And Shannon turned to me and goes, you got it, right
Royal
there.
blue.
Chartreuse and royal blue, thanks to Colton Pierce, a 10-year-old out of Bakersfield, California.
And it's a former Miss Budweiser hull.
It is one of the two boats underneath the tree that are former Budweisers.
Right.
Bernie Little, somewhere, some way, is he's smiling down thinking a couple of his boats are back under the tree.
And it was, it's just over a decade. That boat had a crash in Detroit.
Yes, and that was an ugly crash, and unfortunately I had the call that day. I'll never forget it. I'm standing atop the pit tower, and we saw the skid fin flash when it came off, and if you've ever been to Detroit and seen the rooster tail turn, it is something special. And I'm up atop the pit tower, I saw him go, and I saw the flash, which we assumed was the skid fin, and all of a sudden the boat's going straight, and he literally is coming right straight into the pit area, and it is not going to end well. And somehow he, J.W. Myers, was able to turn the boat to the right, and that was the good news. He ended up going broadside, almost head on into the bulkhead at the Rooster Tail restaurant there, and it was some serious ugly damage to that hull. And Scott and Shannon and his team, they've been kind of continually working on that boat to bring it back. I think he always knew this was the hull he believes to be potentially the fastest. Now he's got it ready to go. But if you remember last year, their boat was fast anyway. The older hull, the other one, was quick. And so I'm real anxious to see what this former T4, for those of you who keep track of those things, it's the fourth turbine out of Bernie Little. It only ever raced once as the T4. It was in Madison, Indiana. I believe the boat finished in 6th place, but that's just because there weren't enough parts and pieces on the boat to run the final. They won all 3 preliminaries and got in the final, and there was just not enough to keep the boat floating anymore, and Mark Evans couldn't do much with it, and he finally just shut it off and came home in 6th.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this boat, the 11, with Jamie Nielsen, did have some issues down at Guntersville, Alabama.
Well, they had some issues here for our fans who were here for the test session. The J&Ds was here, but they never got off the trailer, never got onto the water with reported electrical issues. We got one of our Grand Prix America boats firing up in the background. But they had electrical issues here, and unfortunately they couldn't get out on the water. They went down to Guntersville and started experiencing basically the same. They had more electrical issues, and the boat wouldn't run. Jamie Nielsen got towed back to the pit area a couple of times. From memory, I don't believe they ever qualified. They just had a terrible time. When it came time for the first heat, they were allowed to race. They got in the first heat. Scott said, I think we got it all behind us. And the boat came out and ran very, very well. I was impressed with the 11 J&Ds down in Guntersville.
And for the driver, Jamie Nielsen went to Central Washington University and actually had a short time in the major leagues.
Yeah, he was in the Kansas City Royal Farm System. Yep. And we chuckle about, that all the time when talking about Jamie. Well, how big are these, how big is the sport of H1 Unlimited hydroplane racing? It's huge. We got a driver here who passed up Major League Baseball for this.
So that's the 11. Graham Trucking, the 12, and a driver change there with Andrew Tate.
Yeah, the boat's down underneath the shade of Bernie's tree. J. Michael Kelly earned that position in 2019 here. but now it belongs to Andrew Tate. And that was announced the night before the test session here a couple of months ago when we had the boats here for testing. And all of a sudden, here's Andrew Tate, and he has jumped over to the U12 Graham Trucking. And I know you were here a little bit for that test session. The boat ran really, really well. And quite honestly, Andrew, aside from an error in the final heat, that boat ran very, very good. And then he finished a very strong second place at the APBA Gold Cup in Madison, Indiana a couple of weeks ago.
And it's also the former Budweiser hull from 2000.
This is the T6 Miss Budweiser. This is the boat, and I was going to say that Bernie built. Bernie didn't build anything. This is the boat that the Budweiser crew and Mr. Vilwalk, who's down on the dock right below us, this is the boat that they built to race and be competitive with the fuel restrictions. This was the lighter hull. This was the hull that would get up further out of the water and be lighter on the water. There was also some rule changes coming into play at that time where the boats could go slower and troll for the start. This boat was designed to do that better. And so this was the last of the Miss Budweiser fleet, the T6. So you got the T4 and the T6. And if there was a T7, it never came out as Miss Budweiser. It was a boat that was kind of laying half full, or half completed, just laying on the ground. And finally they completed it, and that's the other boat that's right here in front of me. That is the U1 Miss Home Street. That is the 2018 Home Street hull that Jimmy Shane will drive this weekend. That would have been the Budweiser 7th boat.
All right, so also in the pits is the Miss Beacon Plumbing and the return to competitive racing for Dave Vilwalk.
I'm telling you.
67 years old.
67 years old, 67 race wins. I was talking to him last night, again, when we did the video walkthrough. He's just on the other side of the crane from the shade of Bernie's tree. And I said, you know, Dave, if you could pull this thing off this weekend, you could move over there and get underneath some shade of Bernie's tree. I think he'd like that. And Dave looked over there and he goes, I spent a lot of time under that tree, which he most certainly did. He's been out of the sport for about 6 years. And let me clarify that. He's been out of the cockpit for about 6 years. He's never been too far away from the sport because, as we say every year, and I'm sure we will this weekend, nobody can set up a race boat like Dave Vilwalk can. He is absolutely a master at it. The question now is, can he knock off the rust and be ready to go and put this Beacon Plumbing out front? I would not, under any circumstances, count out what Kelly Stockland and Dave Vilwalk could pull together with this U40, the Beacon Plumbing.
And they've showed improvement from Guntersville to Madison, but yet in watching the final heat from Madison, you could still tell in lane number 2 that Vilwalk, who's the most experienced driver out there, was having trouble with the 40.
He was. It just seemed like he was having a hard time with it in the corners and holding a line through the corner. Now, that may have been attributable to boat ride because I happened to watch it last night for a minute, and if you watch the start of the final heat in Madison, Dave actually takes the field down to the first turn. He leads them down there. He's got a lot of speed with him, but he takes them down there, and he has, bar none, the worst boat ride going down the front straightaway. He's walking it back and forth on the sponsons. It just didn't seem to want to attain a stable attitude for him. And as you know, Michael, you get these things into the corner, the first thing you got to do is settle that boat down and get it on the water. And he was having a hard time doing that. He seemed very optimistic. Dave Vilwalk, last night, when I spoke with him, that they've got their problems in the rearview mirror. Of course, I wouldn't expect him to say, no, we're in deep trouble. But I look for these guys and don't count them out by any stretch of the imagination. This is an old go fast, turn left hull built in 2007. And Dave's put a lot of work in this boat in the off season. He's rebuilt a ton of it. He's got it the way he wants it, he and Kelly. And look out. These guys have a very good shot at winning the 2021 HAPO Columbia Cup.
So is this the former boat then that Brian Perkins drove, a 21?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
And in 2019, remember Go Fast Turn Left Racing, they brought out their brand new boat. Remember they had the hatch problem? The hatch came off the bottom. And that was the brand new boat. But for all those years prior to it, since 2007, this U40 hull, the Beacon Plumbing, that was the boat that Brian drove.
All right, and the 440 Bucket List Racing, maybe the steadiest boat that we've had out there.
The which one, the 440?
Yep.
Well, and they've had their troubles, though.
Yeah, this year.
Boy, they got down to, they ran, I think, once, maybe twice, and I don't think they made it back to the pit area either time in Guntersville, and they kept drawing them into heats, but they never answered the bell.
Yeah, but remember, Brad, back in 2018, 2019, it was one of the steadiest boats.
Absolutely.
That finished almost every heat that it went out.
They did, and they finished very high in national high points, and in that 2019 season at Guntersville, that's when they turned that lap at 150 miles an hour, and nobody ever thought that boat could ever possibly go that fast. And that's when fans started clamoring for, and there started to be discussion. If Kelly Stockland and his crew could get $150 out of that little thing, what would happen? What would happen if he had a full-size boat and a full-size turbine motor and a good crew? We're about to find out.
And Dustin Eccles, the pilot of the 440. Take a timeout. More of our coverage coming up from the HAPO Columbia Cup. Michael McDonald, Brad Luce with you from the Columbia Shoreline. We'll be back on News Radio 610 KONA and 610KONA.com.
Summer heat.
For OEM parts for
Hello again, everybody. This is Tate Meyer with you, your stream engineer. We are still in a holding pattern right now. We're still fighting the millweed up the backstretch. We have rescue boats right now trying to break it loose with their propellers, running through it, doing the best they can. Unforeseen obstacle that we're trying to get through, so we appreciate your patience. We will keep you updated as anything changes, but we're still in a holding pattern. Thanks for tuning in. We will have boats on the water once we get this resolved. Thanks for your patience.
Along the Columbia River, and this turns out to be quite a large problem this year. Tell me what's going on over there, Aaron.
Well, with all of our hot weather that we've had the last few weeks, with this 100-degree weather, it's caused all this milfoil to really grow. So what we have is we have a milfoil island. It's about 100 feet long by 60 feet wide. And right now we have our wonderful Tri-City water ops out there trying to break it up. We got rescue sleds, we got patrol boats, we got towboats out there all working together, trying to break it up. They've done a wonderful job. It's about 50% cut in half. So they're trying to, right now, they're actually trying to grab a chain link fence, wrap it, and pull it to the shore just to get it off the race course.
Okay, so somehow get something around it and get it pulled over to the shoreline.
Yes, and you know, it's like they're just going to try to take it down and then they'll float it downriver. This is a massive thing. Well, with the Columbia Cup, we actually have a closed course with the U.S. Coast Guard, and we also have a waterways management permit. So we have cooperation with the dams. Well, when you raise and lower the river, it picks up stuff off the shore.
Of course. And tell us about the safety ramifications of a mass of milfoil like this on the race course.
So one of the biggest concerns is we are all hydroplanes and we all have our turn fin and our skid fin on the side, and then we have a rudder. Well, at the very bottom of that rudder is your water intake, because that's the lowest point on the boat, and that's what cools the gearboxes in the Unlimiteds and the turbines. It cools the all the motors in all of these boats. So that's what they use to cool. These are all water-cooled motors and engines. So when you go through milfoil, a little piece of milfoil, it goes into that rudder, can cause your motor to overheat and explode.
And that would not be something we'd like to witness out here on the Columbia River course. Volunteers make it happen out there, and all of these people that are trying to corral the milfoil and get it over the shoreline, you know, hats off. They're working really hard out there.
Yes, they are. I can't thank this team enough. I talked to them last night. They're working. I'm hearing them on the radio, running over every little thing we can go through. So I just keep trying to work with H1 officials, the Grand Prix America officials, and the Region 10 inboard officials to keep amending and changing our sanction. And I apologize to all of our race fans. This isn't something we normally do.
Correct. Now, we do have the air show that is scheduled up a little bit later, and that's kind of set on our schedule, and that should be at about 11 a.m. until 12:15. In the meantime, we're still going to try to have the river open for the unlimited hydroplane testing, but that window is getting smaller.
Yes, it is. The boats have to be off the water by 10:45 in order to clear the course, so that way we could start our air show. The air show is a hard fixed point.
Yep.
And that's, you know, and we have a great air show coming up.
Well, and that's based on the air traffic over at the Pasco Tri-Cities Airport. Yes. And other factors.
Oh, yes. You know, the Port of Pasco Airport is an amazing place, and we're all fortunate to now have a lot of different destinations out of there. But what that does is it also restricts our air show.
No question. So what's going to happen with the E350, the 5-liter heats? That looks like that schedule is going to be adjusted a little bit as well.
Yes, I've... The testing session we need for the Grand Prix, those boats are big. They've just raced at Madison, Indiana, and they're coming out here. That's a whole different race course, and they need to get some testing under their belt. So we're going to try to move them to a 12:30 start with a 1 o'clock finish, and then as soon as they're done and off the water, we're going to run the E350 hydroplanes Heat 1. Now, those guys are all the local boys and girls that were here at Richland. They've raced in Olympia 2 weeks ago, so those are all tuned and ready to go. We don't need testing for them. They just race.
They just come out and run and make a lot of noise.
Yes, they do.
Aaron, thanks for the update.
You're welcome, sir.
Aaron Stevens with Water Follies joining us here. Let's head back down to our American Radiator pit reporter, Brad Luce. And Brad, I would imagine that there's a lot of teams that are anxiously awaiting the course to open.
Yeah, we've still got our same boats hanging in and over the water. The only change there is the Beacon Plumbing. The boat was in the water, but they've lifted it back out, but it's just hanging over the water. I was just speaking with the driver's representative, and that's the driver's representative for each class of boats. It's one driver's rep this weekend. It's Kevin Ekert, a name we all know. He has driven in all of the classes that are represented here, and I was talking to him about it. He says, you know, at first, he says, they were telling me there's this little milfoil problem up there. And he says, I'm thinking, that's not going to bother our boats at all. It's not going to bother us. And then somebody sent him a picture of it, and he went, oh, my goodness. And we were commenting that having seen a couple pictures that, you know, realtors are out there selling property on it. He said, it's quite an island.
Yeah, and the way that we've been watching them work, it's incredible. It really is. And hopefully they'll get that cleared up on that Griggs Ace Hardware backstretch soon. Special thanks to FMI Equipment, featuring Mahindra tractors, plus compact construction and landscaping machines and service. They do service what they sell. FMI Equipment with Green Mountain Grills, Echo, and Steel chainsaws in Richland, 1947 St. Street, and FMIEquipment.com. Also thanks to Columbia Marine Center at the Pasco Boat Basin, the only full-service marina in the area. Call 412-1234. Online, it's ColumbiaMarineCenter.com. For moorage maintenance or a new Suzuki outboard motor, ColumbiaMarineCenter.com. Portable welding, custom fabrication, unique metal arts, and much more. It's Knights Welding. See their photo gallery of metal art at knightswelding.com or visit them at 1718 West A Street in Pasco. Also, thanks to All City Transmission, local business that supports the community. When you're looking for auto repair that you can trust, call All City Transmission. For honest work and quality pricing, go to allcitytrans.com. That's allcitytrans.com. Also, Woods Nursery and Garden Center, strong team of knowledgeable and friendly garden professionals to serve your needs. From landscaping to garden pots or shrubs and trees, you can trust the high-quality, healthy plants from Woods, and their advice is always free. Tomorrow's Health. Order your own tests at Tomorrow's Health, and not just for COVID. Tomorrow'sHealth.net has a list of in-house conducted testing to save you money and get your answers. Direct-to-consumer testing at Tomorrow'sHealth.net. And thanks to Columbia Basin Paper and Supply, proud to serve clients from their 515 West Columbia Street Pasco location. Stop by weekdays from 8 to 5 or call 547-3141 for your janitorial supply needs. Now, you touched on vintage boats earlier, Brad. We talked a little bit with Aaron Stevens about the first class of racing that we'll see out here, and that'll be the E350s. And we've had a chance to see them race up in Richland at the regatta a month ago.
Yeah, you're on top of that field. I was down in Guntersville while you were calling those particular boats, and we've got a lot of them here. And I don't believe, though, that the Bad Influence boat was here. I may be incorrect on that. The 79?
We didn't have any Bad Influence.
Okay, well, there's two Bad Influence boats here. That's the Bad Influence Racing and Mike Grindell's boats. They are painted up exactly the same. They're orange with a black and white checker scheme on the front of the boat. A couple of beautiful hydroplanes. We're going to see them out here. But yes, the E350 class, the former 5 leaders, they should put on a good show. We've got 7 of them, and they should be very competitive. And I believe you said Kurt Myers was the class of the field up there in Richland.
Well, he was able to nail the start. You know, we talk about that in unlimited hydroplanes, and it's even more important, I think, with the 350 class, because you want to be at full throttle when you hit that start-finish line, and you really can't be ahead of your timing mark coming up the Griggs backstretch, or you're going to lose out when you get to turn number 1.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And because the course is smaller, it tends to magnify that whole position and importance of the start. But that's what's true in all of our classes of hydroplane racing. And quite honestly, it's what I like about our sport. It makes us unique. There's really, aside from sailboat racing, which is very similar and with the clock start and so forth, we're very unique in that manner. and I personally like it. And it puts a lot of the onus on the driver and how well they can time those things out. If they're wrong, it can cost them the race before it really even starts. But if they're right, and they're right on the button with a lot of boat speed, they can win. And it makes it not just necessarily the fastest boat, it's who can put their boat on the line in the proper position and open water and a lot of boat speed.
And Kurt was able to do that in Richland, and not just on the inside lanes. In fact, he'd like to be out in number 3.
Well, and this is a different boat than he has driven before, and this one is quick. The last time we saw him here, he was driving a blue and white boat. This boat is all yellow. In fact, we're going to have to be on our toes when we call the E350 class when they come out, because we've got a couple of orange ones, a couple of yellow ones, a couple of white ones, and we'll have to make sure our eyes are sharp on the water on this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So Kurt Myers will be in the E1. It is an all-yellow boat. The other boat that's mostly yellow with some red trim is the E6 Reigning Thunder with Mike Jarvis.
And I talked to Mike this morning. He's a character. This guy is really a character, and he just loves to race. He loves to do this, and he's so excited to be here. And he's got his little yellow boat here. He's not necessarily the fastest boat on the water, but it can be very competitive. And again, if you can put your boat on the start-finish line on time in a good lane position, you can possibly be the one who will be the winner and be the first one. Getting to that first turn first, we know, in hydroplane racing is key.
The other quick boat at the Richland Regatta was the Cheetah, the E57 with Chris Bertram.
As you said that, Mr. Bertram walked right behind me and grabbed me on the back of the neck and said hello. Yes, absolutely. I talked with Pat Bertram, his father, this morning. I talked with Chris yesterday, and just now he walked by. In fact, I tell you what, we're
grab him.
Talk to him.
There you go.
He's right here. Mr. Bertram, how are you?
Brad, I'm well. How are you? It's been a while.
What's good? We're sitting here talking about your class, and he said, well, now we got, Bertram out there in his boat. And I said, he just walked right behind me. So are you guys ready?
Yeah, we've been running pretty well this year. We ran 2 races thus far, and we finished 3rd in both races. Richland about a month ago, and then 2 weeks ago, Black Lake, Washington.
And the boat's running good?
For what we have, running against a lot faster guys, and we're winning a few heats and taking 3rd. It's running okay.
We were just talking about that it's not just who maybe has the fastest boat. You can put yourself in the right position on the race course, take the field into the first turn, you can beat them.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's always been fundamentals. Get a good lane, be on time, and even if you don't have the lane of choice, it's always you want to be on time. And if you could beat everybody down the first corner, you might win.
Michael, that sounds like what we just said. I didn't pay him to say that.
Couldn't draw it up any better.
I owe you $5, I think, on that one. Anyway, talk to your dad. Your dad seems to be doing really well.
Yeah, he's 86 now, and he still builds the engines and sets the boats up, and he's doing well, and he has a good time coming out and seeing everybody.
For those who don't know your father, he's been doing this his entire life.
Yeah, I think he started, true story, like 1957. And he took a couple years off here and there when he was working his business and had a family. And I think his last competitive heat in a hydroplane was 75 years old.
Wow.
And I know you were there actually to call the race, Brad, at the terrace. So, yeah, he's doing well. Thanks for saying that.
Well, he called me over to the truck and went over and chatted with him. And he looks like he's having fun. And that's what this whole thing is about.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's the camaraderie of people. And glad we're out here doing it again.
Well, have a good time this weekend. Give us a good show. We're, needless to say, all hungry for it.
Yeah, we get the E57. It's a cheetah boat. It's white with yellow and orange fire on it. So look for that boat, maybe.
It's a good-looking hull. We'll look for you out front. Thank you very much.
Seeing you, brother.
All right. Good seeing you.
Well, that was perfect timing.
Yeah. I have known that guy for a long, long time. His father, I was talking about his father. I said, this guy knows more about hydroplane racing. And I said, I'm not talking about the history of stuff, but you want to talk about building a boat and what's involved in building a boat and trim and angles and dihedral and anhedral. And this guy's a magician. He's amazing. And I didn't realize he was 86 years old, but he looks great. And he does this and it keeps him young.
Also in the field with the E350 class, formerly 5-liter, it's appears to be kind of an orangish boat. It's the E98, the Flood guys, and it is bright orange with Steve Huff.
And this is a boat that we have seen out here before. This is the boat that Wally Johnson drove out here a number of years ago. You will remember it as the 98, the Agitator. And it had a for sale sign on it a number of years ago. Well, it's now landed into the hands of Steve Huff and Steve Huff Racing, and I talked to Steve last night, and he's just excited to be here. And he does so much good work in the community. You could talk for hours about what he and his group of people do in the community to help people out. Even down in Guntersville, Alabama, there was work being done to help disadvantaged children and to make sure they could get to the race and see the race. And they all had Steve Huff T-shirts on. He's a very, very unselfish guy. Wears his emotions on his sleeve. If this guy gets a win, he'd be ready for some tears and a pretty happy guy. So Steve Huff, really glad to have him here. Bright orange boat, you can't miss it.
Yeah, and another orange boat. It has kind of a checkered flag motif up on the sponson. It's Jeff Bernard in the E78.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking. That's Mr. Grindell's boat. I just walked by it there, and beautiful, beautiful boat on the water. And as you know, anytime you draw a heat and you're running against a boat that is driven by Jeff Bernard, you better be ready, because he's coming, and he's coming with his A game. He only knows one way to drive. That is hard, that is fast, and it's out front. Look for those guys to be really strong in the E350 class.
John Rifle is back in the E226 fully loaded racing. It's mostly white, has some black trim.
It does. I'm standing right next to the boat right now, and it's John Rifle is one of my favorite people. His entire family, they're just super folks, and I don't remember the year because, well, as we know, you reach a certain age and you kind of forget to remember those. But we were at Pateros one time, and this wasn't too many years ago, maybe 7 years ago, whatever. Anyway, he was, remember the APBA school boat?
Yeah.
And you could spend a certain amount of money, and you could go through classes, and you could go through capsule training. And
yes, like $500.
Yeah, and then you got to take a boat out.
APBA.org.
APBA.org, and you could take a boat out and take 10 laps on the river at one of the courses. So we were in Pateros, and the boat was there, the school boat, and they had 3 people there that were going to take it out and get their culmination of living a dream, right? They're going to go out and drive a hydroplane. One of the guys was John Rifle. I'll never forget it. He came in. This guy is just beaming. He's so excited. He wanted to go out and run another 20. He was ready to go, and we just had this wonderful interview. That was in Pateros on a Sunday afternoon before he left Pateros, before he left the pit area that night. He bought the boat he's racing now. He said, I got to do this. I got to do this. And then we were there, and I think it was Spanaway, when they got to, he finally became no longer a rookie. And when a rookie runs in an APBA limited inboard class boat, you have to put an X on your boat, so you're branded as a rookie. And I remember at the awards ceremony, he invited anybody who wanted to come down and help rip the X off his boat. No longer a rookie. So super, super guy. Probably not going to be the boat we're going to see out front, but I'm always kind of quietly cheering for a guy named John Rifle just because of that story, and he just loves to boat race.
And it was kind of a rough weekend a month ago at the Richland Regatta for Rochelle Hill. The timing was a little bit off, and there were some other circumstances for the E46 Hill family racing, but it's one of the most colorful boats out there with yellow, red, and white highlights.
It is a pretty boat, and Rochelle can really drive. And if I remember, it was a number of years ago, 3 or 4, that we were over here, and she couldn't run the entire weekend and drove all night back to, I think, Mount Vernon.
Yes.
And picked up a new motor.
Correct.
And when I remember walking in the pit area, she was just sitting on the ground working on that motor, and she finally got out and ran. If the boat's ready to go, Rochelle Hill can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
She is a good driver. So, yeah, keep an eye on her, and it is a pretty boat.
And that is our field for the E350s out for the 2021 HAPO Columbia Cup, and we should have some racing. We're scheduled to have a heat of racing coming up right after the air show this afternoon with the 350 class. We'll take a timeout. More of our coverage coming up on News Radio 610 KONA. Special thanks to Brunsman's Office Solutions, the leader in innovative office design. Brunsman. News Radio 610 KONA and 610KONA.com. Welcome back to the Rutzman's Memorial Barge here at the JMC Motorsports start-finish line. Michael McDonald with you, and we do have a schedule change because of the issue with the milfoil island that is over on the Griggs Ace Hardware backstretch over by the Pasco shoreline, and they're trying to tear it apart. They're trying to tow it over to the shore, trying to get it out of the way for the safety of all the boat racers. Looks like our H1 Unlimited test session, Brad, now has been moved to 12:30 this afternoon. So that would fall right after the HAPO Over the River Air Show.
And I had just heard that there was a new schedule out. I was just going to go put my paws on it and make sure you had it, so you're way ahead of me.
And the GPs, the GP America group will be out testing at 1:30. So it'd be an hour of H1 testing from 12:30 until 1:30 this afternoon. Then the GPs would have a half hour to test from 1:30 until 2. Qualifications then would start at about 2:15 until 3:45. And we do have an order of appearance for qualification coming up. 5 leaders at 3:45 this afternoon. And that's the update from now. Dash for cash for the H1s at 5:05 p.m. to wrap up the day's events. I do want to welcome our air show announcer, Mike Barachoa, joining us here.